As I pull up the agenda here, Mr. Slay, do we have any modifications to the agenda?
No, ma'am. I'll just have a couple of comments on a couple of the consent agenda items when we get to it.
Okay. And I skipped over roll call. Do we need to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Roll call? Yes. Thank you.
Commissioner Walker,
Present.
Commissioner Messerschmidt,
Here.
Commissioner Dozier,
Here.
Commissioner Minor,
Here.
Commissioner Matlow,
Here.
Commissioner Richardson,
Here.
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Here.
Madam Chair, if you'll give me just a minute, Commissioner Maddox was going to join us virtually, and they were having some issues, so I want to check and make sure.
Okay. Well, we could go ahead and take a vote.
He's actually, apparently he's not online. So.
Good to know. Thank you, sir. For those of us who've been taking many votes on virtual attendance to approve that before someone joins us, I was just told by council our bylaws are actually silent on that, so we won't need to take that vote should Commissioner Maddox join us. I just wanted to state that for the record, sir.
And that's correct.
Thank you. All right. And no agenda modifications. Great.
No, ma'am.
So we'll move on to public comment for unagended items, and we have one speaker, Elk Long. Did I get that right, ma'am? And if you would, your name and address for the record, and you've got 3 minutes. Welcome.
Okay, my name is Elke Long. I want to apologize. I have an accent. I wasn't born in the United States, but I live on 508 East Paul Russell Road, Tallahassee, Florida, 32301. I'm here to speak on behalf of the students and parents from Tallahassee Classical School. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. Is a new school that was built out on Tram Road. It's a charter school. It was opened in August of 2020, and the Leon County School District didn't want this school. The founders of the school promised to put this school in a place where we don't have excellent schools already, so we are on the south side, just for everybody. This school has no access to sidewalks. Bike lanes, nothing. There is Tram Road. Luckily, Tram Road was lowered in speed to 45 miles per hour instead of 50 miles. But, you know, as that goes, nobody pays attention to that either. So you have a very narrow road with a school that has no access to anybody who lives on the south side. Because I don't know if you know, but most of my neighbors do not have cars. I got to tell you that. And so I am very discouraged. I contacted Mr. Maddox in 2020. I was told that by the Public Works Department that sidewalks are on the schedule for 21-22. We're in the middle of 22. I contacted Public Works again. I was now told that they are looking to get a grant because it's a school road, or it's a route that goes to a school. And if that doesn't go through, it's going to be put on the agenda in 2023. At that point, the school is going to be open for 3 years. This is a K to 12th grade school, and I am utterly disappointed that no one thinks this is a problem. I really am. I mean, I have spoken to commissioners. I have spoken to Commissioner Cummings. I have spoken to Mr. Minor just recently, and I don't understand it. I mean, it's a school. These kids need to be able to get to school, or you want them to be run over on Tram Road? I don't know. I just can't believe it. If this would be a school in Cologne, I can assure you we had sidewalks before it opened. And this is very, very disappointing to me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you. Commissioner Minor, since you have spoken about this, this is a county issue for county sidewalks. Was that your understanding, or do we need to refer this to county staff?
Commissioner Dozier, Ms. Long and I spoke very briefly about it. We've been meeting to get together, so I only have the most cursory overview of what the issue is and whether sidewalks would be desired, that type of thing.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, sir, so thank you for that. Mr. Slay, if this is a county issue, we can refer it to the county administrator, but perhaps we could talk about that after the meeting, and we could follow up with Mrs. Long.
Yes, ma'am. Tram Road, of course, is a county road. I know we've had some discussions in the past with county staff about they have been looking at the possibility of a sidewalk. I believe one of the issues as it relates to the Safe Routes to School program, And again, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I don't know, there are a lot of kids that actually walk to the school because of its remote location. So that actually probably doesn't open it up for safe routes to school. But I do know there has been some work, or the county has been trying to work on this project. I just don't know the current status of it.
That's just fine. Okay, we will refer that over to Leon County Business. We have one more unagended speaker, and this would be Representative Schoaf. We breezed by each other when we were walking in. Good to see you, sir. Welcome.
Good to see you too, Commissioner, and thank you for your time. I'll be very brief. Came up today and wanted to see this group. I know you do a lot of great work around North Florida, and we appreciate you. There's one specific issue that I want to ask for your consideration moving forward. We desperately need 319 four-laned all the way in Wakulla County. Right now, it is, as you're all aware, it's stopping short. We've got other projects that are higher ranked and understand why. But please consider finishing that project all the way through. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Sir, if you don't mind putting your name and address on the record, please.
Oh, see, I thought I named him for him. Forgive me for that, yes.
Jason Schoaf. I live at 216 Gaultier Memorial Lane in Port St. Joe, Florida.
Thank you, sir. I saw Commissioner Messersmith smile at this. I know well before you were on the board, we had a conversation about 319. Ms. Lay, is there an update, or could we provide Representative Schoaf an update at some point in the board?
Yes, ma'am, and actually your agenda item day, one of the projects or the things is your priority projects, and there's some updated information. I think right now we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about $100 to $150 million to complete the project. So that's one of the things, of course, we always deal with is lack of funding, and that in particular is an expensive project. We did make some changes on that related to a request from Commissioner Merritt last year, as a matter of fact, splitting out the piece through Crawfordville to try to get the northern piece of that done a little bit quicker. So it is something that is a priority, but like everything else, we're waiting on funding.
So we'll get into that when we look at our priorities, then we can talk about it again to see if there's other action we can take. Thank you. All right, we have no...
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
On that, since Representative Scholl came and asked for this, perhaps he can help us find some of that funding.
Well, that's something you all can certainly ask him.
You thought that might come back to you, sir, right? Yes. I guess since you mentioned it, Commissioner Williams-Cox, I would just say I really appreciate all of our legislative delegation from this region. I think everyone really gets the needs in this area. We know they're dealing with a lot of challenges with their colleagues, or challenges and other projects, other priorities with their colleagues from around the state. But I appreciate you being here today, and it certainly is a partnership with the state. You're right. Okay. Any other comments at this point? Okay. So no other speakers on unagended items, so we're moving on to the consent agenda. We don't have anything pulled from consent.
Move consent.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Williams-Cox, a second from Commissioner Richardson.
Quick comments on that.
Go right ahead.
For the Unified Planning Work Program, we updated the project budgets for the freight study and telecommute study. Those are a couple of subjects that we talked about at our retreat. Also, too, we are looking to partner with the Apalachicola Regional Planning Council on a data interface that will give us access to a significant amount of transportation information. That's budget, I think, at about $32,000. So upon approval, we'll be looking to execute that probably right after July the 1st.
Thank you. Any questions on that additional information? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Moving on to item 6, and this will be roll call vote on agenda items. So moving straight into 6A, the FY23 to 27 Transportation Improvement Program adoption.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Lex is going to give us a brief presentation. What we'd want to do with these is we'd want to do 6A as a roll call vote, since that is the actual TIP itself. And I'm sorry, I thought we had a third one, but yeah, this will be 2 separate roll call votes for items 6A and 6B.
Suzanne.
Suzanne?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you the fiscal year 2023 to 2027 Transportation Improvement Program for the Capital Region. Just a couple few points. We adopt this annually. Next slide, please. There we go. Thank you. It's a 5-year work program. It provides a comprehensive listing of transportation projects, and it includes projects for all modes: roads, bridges, transit, bicycle, pedestrian, trails, and of course, and maintenance of our roadways, as well as our transportation planning budget. Documents the funding of those transportation projects, and it informs the public about the projects and programs that are occurring in the transportation arena here in Capital Region. Next slide, please. Projects are identified through, first, the Regional Mobility Plan. That's really the foundation for the development of our projects and our priorities. But also, we pull information from the Congestion Management Plan, Star Metro's Transit Plan, the Airport's Master Plan. So all of these documents inform the CRTPA for the project priorities, which are then funded in the Transportation Improvement Program. There is one competitive process for projects, and that is through the Transportation Alternatives Program, which we annually solicit applications for. There we go. The funding sources, again, it's state, federal, and the federal is both Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. And then also it includes local counties and cities funds. For example, there is $25 million of local funds in the current TIP as part of the State Infrastructure Bank loan to Blueprint for the Wilani extension. Next slide, please. The funding tables show that the aggregate of all funding, federal, state, and local, in the work program for the next 5 years is $377,441,708. And that's for all types of projects. The TIP is fiscally constrained. There must be enough revenue for the expenditure of projects. And again, you can see the lion's share is here in Leon County, because again, that includes your transit, your aviation as well, and your intelligent transportation system projects. Next slide, please. To access the TIP, you may do it via, of course, the website, but it is a document, so you can go to the document and search through it, or you can go to our interactive map. And anywhere where it's got a red line, that represents a project. You can click on the project, it'll give you details, and you can also leave comments. The typical project page is laid out here, and I just wanted to show you this for the point that this year we've added a new feature to the project page, which will allow you to also access FDOT's work program and additional details on that project. So if you click on the FPID number or the project number, it will take you directly to FDOT's work program. There you will find the project mapped on their GIS system. If the project is managed by FDOT, they will include a schedule. So you can look to see when things will occur for this project, in the development of this project. And then it'll also, of course, include the budget. There are times where you'll see some minor differences between what's in the Transportation Improvement Program and what's in the state transportation plan. And that's because it's being updated right now. It's still in what they call the draft. And they provided us some of the updated numbers, which will be posted when the state transportation program is approved in July. And of course, if you have any questions, you're always welcome to call staff as well. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Are there any questions from the board?
Thank you, Suzanne. Any questions?
I would move, Madam Chair, that we approve the resolution 2022.0568. as recommended by staff.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson, a second by Commissioner Villalobos. Hearing no other comments, we'll move to a roll call vote.
Ma'am?
Commissioner Walker,
Approve.
Commissioner Messersmith,
Approve.
Commissioner Villalobos,
Yay.
Commissioner Dozier,
Yes.
Commissioner Minor,
Yes.
Commissioner Matlow,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
Williams Cox,
Yes.
and Commissioner Maddox.
And yes, Commissioner Maddox should be with us on the phone.
Yes. Unanimously passed.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, moving on to 6B. Back to you, Suzanne. Yes.
Thank you very much. This is an amendment to our current transportation improvement program for fiscal years 22 through 26. FDOT requested that we amend an existing project in the adopted TIP to reflect that the project limits have been extended from 2.3 miles to 3.18 with new limits, which is National Forest Road 358 to State Road 20 Bluntstown Highway. And we're requesting approval of that amendment to the Transportation Improvement Program with Resolution 2022-56B.
Madam Chair, move option 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Walker,
Approve.
Commissioner Messersmith,
Yes.
Commissioner Villalobos,
Yeah.
Commissioner Dozier,
Yes.
Commissioner Minor,
Yes.
Commissioner Matlow,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams Cox,
Yes.
and Commissioner Maddox.
Yes.
Unanimously passes.
Thank you. We are moving on to 7A, project priority list.
Madam Chairman, this is our annual project priority list that we review and you all approve every year. These are submitted to DOT for development of the fiscal year 23 work program. I had to stop and think there for a second.
Number 224.
Or 24, I'm sorry, yes. So again, Ms. Lex will give you a presentation on the priority project lists.
Thank you again for this opportunity again. So we just went over the projects that are funded for the next 5 years. These lists inform FDOT of the projects we want it funded in next year's work program. So we would be looking to present to you from the list what was funded moving forward. It's required that we adopt the priority list both in state and federal law. It includes, again, all types of projects, including maintenance and safety projects. And they're identified through, again, the plans that I referenced before, the regional mobility plan, transit plans, airport plans, and so forth. We approve this annually, and the long-term needs are set forth in the regional mobility plan. So for your capacity projects, that's where you'll find most of those listed first. And it identifies the projects or phases of projects that are not fully funded. And again, our goal is when funding becomes available, FDOT, we'd like you to program it, please. As I mentioned before, that we have them for all categories, and I'm not going to go through each list separately unless the board would like me to. I'd like to just highlight the roadways, bike and ped, and the regional trails. Particularly the roadways is the first one. That's where we see the most changes this year, and I know this is hard to see. I tried to get it as big as possible. So if you go in your packet, I have a summary of these changes. I think most importantly, and it speaks to the comment from earlier, you will see that the Wakulla projects for Crawfordville Road have been advanced. It's now, again, it's number 3, but the limits of that project have changed, and it's been shortened. So it's Wakulla Aaron Road to East Ivan Road. We requested last year that FDOT bifurcate the 4.4-mile section and just program the first 2.1 miles, which is priority number 3, because we will have a greater chance of getting funding for right-of-way and construction with that shorter segment of the project. Woodville Highway and Capitol Circle both remain the first 2 priorities. Orange Avenue moved up in ranking to number 4 from number 5. This is another project where the limits were changed at the request of the CRTPA and Blueprint. So they have extended the limits from Spring Hill Road now to Cypress Lake Street. So it'll capture that full intersection there with Lake Bradford. And that segment is currently under design right now, and we're looking for right-of-way funding. The next segments are, I think, another significant change here for Crawfordville Road and in the work program. I'm very happy to tell you that FDOT has programmed $4.4 million for the design of the 2 segments of Crawfordville Road in Leon County. So to get this project moving, we need plans, and those plans are funded for design in fiscal year '23. That project also from L.S. Wallace Road to the county line was previously ranked as number 9. It has moved up now to number 5. Again, recognizing that FDOT has funded the design, we want it to continue to move forward. The next project is Thomasville Road, 7th Avenue to Monroe Street. This project is for multimodal complete streets improvements. Some of those improvements may occur with the resurfacing project that is programmed, but again, there's additional enhancements we would like FDOT to consider on that state roadway. The ranking remains the same then for that project in Pensacola Street. And then following, you'll see that the projects down the line do not have any funding associated with them in the state or federal budget, of course, with the exception of Walani, which the SIB loan of $25 million was secured by Blueprint this year. Now, are there any questions on the roadway PPLs and the rankings?
Suzanne, before we get to questions, we do have one public speaker on this item, so I was going to let the presentation go through. However, I think it would be good if the board is willing to discuss each of these presentations in segments. We'll deal with roads first. So if you don't mind, I'll let our public speaker make his comment, and then we will get to questions on the presentation Suzanne just gave. Okay.
Thank
and
you.
that would be Eric Draper. You're up. 3 minutes, and you know the drill. Good to see you, sir. Name and address for the record.
Thank you very much. Eric Draper, 3627 Dexter Drive, Tallahassee, Florida, 32312. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I actually thought that I had submitted a card on the mobility plan for bicycle and pedestrian project safety. So I'll just, if it's okay, I'll just come, because my comments are short.
You can give them now, or you can wait, but keep, yeah, please go ahead. Thanks, Eric.
I also put in a card on the, on item B, which is the US 90 multi-use trail feasibility study. So I'm here speaking on behalf of Capital City Cyclists. We're fully in support, of course, the Thomasville Road multi-use path, as well as the US 90 multi-use trail feasibility study, and urge your approval of both the priority list for the bicycle and pedestrian, as well as the US 90 multi-use feasibility study. And I'm really putting the cards just in case there was any questions or controversy about those, that you knew that enjoyed the full support of the bicycle and the running community. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. All right. Questions or comments on the presentation we've just heard from Suzanne about the updates to the road portion of the priorities list? Forgive me, Dr. V. It was right there with the podium. I didn't see your card up. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering, on hearing the list of the roadways, I did not hear any road projects from either Gaston County or Jefferson County. Is it because those 2 county roads were not submitted, or they do not meet the they are not eligible for this type of funding, while those two counties, there were no projects from those two counties. That's my question. Chair.
Dr. V, if you recall, these are all the road widening projects that we have throughout the region, and we have not identified any for Jefferson or Gadsden counties in terms of road widening.
Madam Chair, I think I would, if I recall correctly, we have asked for a couple of roads to be widened in Gadsden County. One of them is actually being up for resurfacing without the widening, and we also requested shoulders to be placed on that road. And there are, I mean, those were not actually done. So there were roads in Gadsden County that need to be widening with shoulders for safety, because when people are walking and cars are coming, they just step right into the grass, or sometimes trying to jump over the gutter for safety. So I don't know why those roads were not considered for funding.
Well, and again, Dr. V, these are actually adding lanes to roadways. We've talked about those roads in the past that you referenced with widening shoulders or paving shoulders. Those projects typically don't appear on this list because these are the ones we're looking to add lanes to.
Okay. That was my question, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I'm just going to go back to Crawfordville Highway 319 for a second, just to make sure that we are clear on this. It is good news. We've got that one segment advanced to number 3, and the Leon County portion. I know that was something we had discussed a number of years ago, that people thought, there was going to be a bottleneck there. But the other 2 segments, Suzanne, if I'm reading this correctly, are number 10 and 11 that don't currently have funding. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So again, for Representative Schoaf and for others, we could dig into the details after the meeting, but I think the strategy, that's something we should talk about after the meeting, to break the projects up to help ensure we get funding for at least a portion of it, and how that might be leveraged to move other projects up in the future. I think that we would benefit from that kind of conversation. Am I on the right track there?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
could, Suzanne, can you go back to the first sheet or the first line just to show you, the amount of money that I mentioned earlier? Can you back the
Can you back up one for me?
back the slide up? Oh, not quite that far. There we go. Bearings here. Yeah, as you can see on project number 3, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of about $80 million for that section. I'm looking through the last ones. Going down to number 5, where again, we're at about probably 60 to 65 million. So yeah, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $150 million to complete that entire segment down to 98. One of the reasons we did recommend moving that last segment down to 98 further down the list is that actually has the least amount of traffic in the entire corridor. So in terms of roadway capacity, the ones, especially through Crawfordville, are in much more need. So we felt that we needed to focus on those particular segments and try to get those done first.
Any other questions or comments about this? Okay, thank you for that. And again, we'll follow up. All right, we're going to vote on this as a package, correct? So you're going to move on to your next presentation, Stan?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the regional trails, the bicycle and pedestrian list. What's important to understand about this list is that the first 5 projects, which is the Thomasville Road Multi-Use Path, North Monroe Sidewalk, downtown sidewalk improvements on Monroe Street, Bloxham Cutoff Road, Multi-Use Path, and St. Augustine Sidewalk. All 5 of those projects either are in design, have been designed, or funding for design is in the next few years. So again, those projects remain, they move up in ranking to reflect the fact that there's always already an investment in those, and we want to continue the funding for construction. The number 6 project is Appalachian Parkway Connector. That's a trail connector from Suter to Connor, Oak Ridge Road multi-use path from Crawfordville to Woodville, and then finally, the Goose Pond Trail for Mahan Drive, which is a blueprint project. Are there any questions on the bicycle and pedestrian rankings or list? Okay.
Hearing none. Thank you.
And
Moving.
so the last list I'll just quickly touch on is the regional trails list. And I just want to note that the Monticello Trail that was previously on the bike ped list has been moved to the regional trail list to recognize the fact it's a Sun Trail connector. And then also the US 90 project was previously separated by county as priority 1 and 2. We've now combined them to be the first priority number 1 on the regional trails. I did not intend to go through all of the other lists separately unless the board would like me to discuss something in particular. So we have the transit list, transportation safety management, intelligent transportation system, and then the aviation project list. Again, these remain fairly constant from year to year. And the aviation project list, I'd just like to note that the airport list reflects a significant amount of investment from the from the Relief Act for the infrastructure. So they have taken advantage of those opportunities. Any questions?
The board members, any questions?
Thank you very much. We're looking for a recommendation to adopt the 24 to 28 Regional Mobility Plan roadways at all the lists for fiscal year 24 to 28.
Move staff
you.
recommendation, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Richardson. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Walker. Glad you're with us today. Since we're talking Star Metro, I'll just give a shout out to the city. There was a nice spot on WFSU this morning about the surveys, the community surveys being done for bus stop improvements and everything. So sounds like you all are working pretty hard on that, so appreciate that effort. All right, is this a roll call vote?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so no other comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Commissioner Maddox, are you in favor?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I thought so. All right. Moving on to item 7B, and this time I'm going to have our speaker at the beginning here, but Eric, you just wanted, you already made your comments on the regional mobility, so you're just here in support, correct? Yes. No additional comments? Thank you, sir. Okay. Greg.
Ma'am, actually, I'll turn it over to Mr. Burke. He's the project manager for this. I'll let him introduce the project and our consultant as well. So, Greg, go ahead.
Great. Good afternoon, members. We are here today to present the US 90 multi-use trail feasibility study. Now, this is a study that was initiated 2.5 years ago. And with us today, we have Kate with KHA to provide an overview of the study and what we've been doing for almost 3 years now.
Thank you, Greg. Can everyone hear me okay? I think so. So as Greg said, Kate Witness, I'm with Kimley Horn. We've been supporting the CRTPA on this project now for just about over 2 years. And really the purpose of this study was to determine if there are some feasible routes that connect City of Tallahassee and Leon County over to Monticello along US 90. So just want to give a little bit of background on the project purpose, and that is to just see if it was feasible to connect these two great areas within our capital region. The limits for this project was Pedrick Road, which is on the western side, over to the existing Monticello Bike Trail, which is right in downtown Monticello. It's a great existing shared use path that actually just had PD&E adoption to extend further south to connect to the high school over there. So really just kind of building along some connections in both these areas, and it's about just over 20 miles of a project length. So you guys have seen these project goals since we kicked off this project. This project is a regional facility, so it's over 20 miles in length. It makes the goals for this project different than a shorter trail or path. We really want to make sure that this facility is continuous between these two great cities and counties, allowing for safe travel by residents as well as with visitors, that this attracts people to our region. Because US 90 is a part of the Sun Trail system, which stands for Shared Use Non-Motorized Trails, which is an FDOT program, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. This route will ultimately be a part of a much larger system of trails spanning throughout the Panhandle as well as the entire state of Florida. So trails of this length are really significant, and they are attracting people from honestly all over the country and even the world as this entire Sun Trail system gets built, which converts to heads and beds and growing ecotourism and economic development where they're located. So that's a big part of the goals of this project as well. So just want to spend a little bit of time on Sun Trails. As I said, this stands for Shared Use Non-Motorized Trail System. This is actually identified by the Florida Greenways and Trails System through their Land Priority Trails Network, a mouthful. Then Florida Department of Transportation has taken that Land Priority Trail Network and kind of oversees it under this Sun Trails program. So these are regional trails. US 90 has been identified a part of the Sun Trail system for many years because it really is that connection, a part of the east-west connection here through the Panhandle to connect Tallahassee over to Monticello. So this isn't a project that has been new. It's really been something that's been thought about for a long time. A lot of cyclists currently use US 90 and just ride along the shoulder right now, but it is a part of a bigger system throughout our state. So we just wanted to touch base on that a little bit today. And then in addition to its statewide significance, US 90 is also an important connection in our regional trail connectivity. Right now, there is not a safe connection between Monticello and Tallahassee for cyclists who don't feel confident biking in the shoulder along US 90. Currently, cyclists do use a couple routes that are off, which we'll talk about when we discuss some of the route analysis, but really a separate facility along US 90 will allow for this connection to be used by many different types of cyclists as well as local pedestrian towards the limits of this project and where there are some neighborhoods located along US 90. So some of the existing conditions, most of you are very familiar with this area. Majority of our project is located in the 2-lane bi-directional with a paved shoulder. As you get closer to the western limit, it is 4 lanes. There are sidewalk and bike facilities in that area, but a majority of our project area does not have any bicycle or pedestrian facilities. As you get into the Monticello city limits, you do have sidewalks there and some on-street parking. But a majority of the project area looks exactly like the picture that's on the screen here, just paved shoulder and then about 2 11 to 12 foot travel lanes that are posted at about 55 miles per hour. I'm a slow driver and I go 55 and I get kicked off the road, mostly by Jack if he's driving behind me. So existing conditions along the corridor. So we just wanted to kind of explain that as we're doing a feasibility study, we're really taking a lot of data that we could get online and doing that analysis at a desktop level to really understand what's out there and understand the feasibility and what routes look feasible from a desktop view that need to move over into the next phase, which is a project development and environment. So this is just a list of some of the data that we collected for this project. I did want to note when we started this project, we looked at right-of-way, and that was available through our existing parcel data, which we got from Leon County and Jefferson County Property Appraiser. As this project moved forward, really up until a few months ago, DOT actually let us know that they converted their right-of-way maps electronically. So we got more, I guess you could say, better right-of-way information, which actually did alter some of the routes that we're recommending move forward into the PD&E phase because it's better information and allowed us to realize where there was additional space along either the north or the south side of the corridor. So we'll touch base on that in a moment. We did want to talk about the public engagement completed for this project. So we did 2 rounds. First round was late spring of 21. All of that was done virtual as we were still dealing with COVID, and we continue to deal with COVID. what we did was we created an online virtual room, we had information up, and then we had some corresponding live question and answer sessions. We had a lot of people view the virtual room and the information. We did not have as many people join the live question and answer sessions, but I will say those who did really gave a lot of great feedback and asked a lot of great questions, just understanding things like where would the trailheads be located, which is stuff we don't really know at this level of a feasibility study. The second round of public engagement was towards the end of 21, moving into winter of 2022. We had a story map online, which is actually still available online. And with that, people were able to kind of read the story of this feasibility study and the project, some of the input that we had received at the first phase. The number of participants up there does double count people, so I probably visited the story map a dozen times throughout the project, but still it was a significant amount of people that went and viewed the information, and we did have a couple people come to the live question and answer sessions. Because COVID, we actually did reschedule the in-person events because there was a peak in COVID after the holidays and into the new year. But we did get a good amount of people to attend in Jefferson County and Leon County and meet with the project team and answer some questions and provide us their input as residents and business owners along the corridor. So we got some great input during this project. We also had stakeholder meetings with Florida Department of Environmental Protection, since they're really the ones doing a lot of the land priority trail network. We met with Leon County Commissioners, Jefferson County Board of County Commissioners, City of Monticello, and Florida Department of Transportation. We met with several of the neighborhoods that are along the corridor, and we also met with local businesses. One that we had was with Hilltop Country Store, and they actually, we were just intending to meet with them. They invited a bunch of their fellow business owners and neighbors, and it ended up being about like 30 of us at that meeting, which was really great because they got to talk to us about the project. We got to hear concerns from them, and we got to make sure that they knew where they could continue to reach out to Greg Burke and find some more information online about the project. So I mentioned the story map. This is actually still available on the CRTPA website, so you can go on here to really view the specifics of the project. Like I said, really just reading the story, as well as you can also see how some of the route analysis has changed since we got that additional, more accurate right-of-way information in April of this year. And then the CRTPA project page, this has all the information over a almost 2.5-year span related to the project. So I encourage, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, to go and view some of that on the CRTPA's page. So with that, we're just going to go through the route analysis. I want to note that with this feasibility study, we do not have a preferred route. Each of the routes that we're going to show you today are recommended to be further evaluated in a project development and environment, PD&E is what we typically call it, study, which is the Florida Department of Transportation's procedure for complying with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. So what a PD&E is going to do is it's going to take a really more detailed look at all of these different routes to determine which is going to be the most socially, environmentally, and physically feasible option for making this connection. And I'll talk a little bit more about PD&Es at the end of this. I want to start off by discussing what we're calling locations of note. These are locations where accommodating a paved trail might be a little bit more difficult, might require some additional mitigation, strategic placement, design application, or coordination. One location in particular is the I-10 interchange. This has always been a challenge throughout our study just because there are a lot of ramps going on and off, and if you don't know the area well, you might, you could get very turned around of which way to get off of I-10 and enter to go east or west along I-10. But as we were working on this project, the news of some new development, the Amazon Fulfillment Center came out, which is close to this area. So there's been a lot of changes with how we could address I-10 interchange and accommodating a trail within this area. So I will note that because of that, we are also recommending, which is laid out in the feasibility study, that Miles Johnson Road, Miccosukee Road, and Edenfield Road also be evaluated during a PD&E to see if the I-10 interchange along US 90 can be avoided, and we can still make the connection between Pedrick Road and Leon County, City of Tallahassee, over to City of Monticello. Also want to just note that some of the changes that we found with the additional right-of-way information was that the right-of-way was not as constrained on the south side of the corridor, which is what the property parcel data let us know. So we found, we actually got to remove some locations of note that were more constrained on the south side, but now we know we have more right-of-way availability there. But we do have a few spots where there is constrained right-of-way along the corridor where the trail may have to be reduced in size, maybe closer to the road. We'll have to look at some different design techniques, but those locations are US 90, Hawks Landing Drive over to east of Jefferson Road, and then also making your way into Monticello. We'll talk a little bit more about Monticello and what we could do once we hit those city limits. Hilltop Country Store is also a location of note. If you've ever visited Hilltop Country Store, you're probably aware of what the parking lot looks like. If you haven't, I encourage you to go visit Hilltop Country Store, but the driveway in the parking lot is very open. They also get a lot of truck deliveries. Every time we met with them, it was usually early in the morning before the store opened, and they just had semis parked right in that area where the trail would most likely be located. So we know that there's going to need to be additional coordination in the areas where we're evaluating this trail along the south side of the corridor. And then the last is just Lake Miccosukee. Right now on the north side of the corridor, you have the existing bridge and the fishing pier that's there, and those are just different types of users of long-distance cyclists and more passive fishermen. So we want to make sure that we're kind of separating those two users, so we would look to be on the south side of the road when we're looking at Lake Miccosukee, and there's also a lot of wetlands, obviously, as you're getting closer to the lake. So now we'll go through some of the routes. So Route 1 that you can see up here is both on the north and the south side of the road. Hopefully you guys can differentiate between the lime green and the yellow. We're starting off on the south side of the road because we do have more right-of-way available, so that's what we would recommend. Looking at the option to take Edenfield and Miles Johnson and Miccosukee Road to avoid I-10 interchange, we'd look for a place that we would, cross and be on the north side of that road and then come into US 90. But we would recommend that we would move to the north side of the road to avoid Hilltop Country Store. So that's kind of in between the two pink stars you see up there. So this one would require 2 crossings along US 90 in a shorter amount of distance. But we would still have to address the I-10 interchange, Lake Miccosukee, and as you enter City of Monticello, which we will talk in a little bit more detail. The Route 2 that we would recommend would stay along the south side of the corridor the entire time. This would cause us to have to address the Hilltop Country Store area and how we could work with them and some of the right-of-way constraints and just how the driveway and the parking lot is laid out within that area. We would also have to address I-10 interchange, Lake Miccosukee, and City of Monticello, but this allows us to avoid any crossings along US 90, which is a pretty long distance to avoid crossing at all for 20 miles. But like we said, there will be some evaluation as we start to look at some of the options to avoid I-10 during the PD&E. And then the third route, this one has not changed based on the right-of-way information we got. We would remain on the south side, and then we actually would take a little bit of a detour, which is a common route right now that goes through some of the, some commonly used cycling corridors, which is Wadesboro, Baum Road, and Jefferson Road. Those roads all have lower volumes, lower posted speed limits, but they do have constrained right-of-way, so there would have to be some additional analysis to look at how we can accommodate a continuous facility, which is really looking at a paved trail within this area, but understanding that the need to have something separated from the road isn't as required when we're dealing with lower speeds and lower volumes and lower traffic on some of these roads. So this is just one of the options as well to move forward into PD&E. So we wanted to talk a little bit about downtown Monticello. So there is restricted right-of-way as we get in there, a lot of historic properties, and then trees. Just for a short segment, which is really the key connection for this project, is to get us into downtown Monticello, into that existing paved trail. So because the speed reduces significantly as we enter the city limits, there's a possibility that we could have bicyclists share the road while still having the existing sidewalks, which are currently there present, that if you didn't feel comfortable as a cyclist staying on the road with the lower speeds as you get into the more historic area of downtown Monticello, they could use the sidewalk, which is allowed in the state of Florida. There's also a possibility that we could also reduce the width of some of the travel lanes as you enter into downtown Monticello to give additional space for a buffer between the existing shoulder that's there with some of the on-street parking. So downtown Monticello will have to be evaluated more, but there definitely are some options of how we can get cyclists safely to the existing Monticello bike trail. I also wanted to note that there's a lot of, as you can see, there's a lot of side roads that get you off of that main US 90 down into the roundabout. Those are very low speed, low volumes, and it is confident that most cyclists would feel comfortable sharing the road with a Shero in those places and appropriate signage to make the connection over to the existing bike trail. So looking at some of those, I guess lesser stress roads would also be an option once we can get people off of 90 and make that connection. And then we just wanted to talk through some design recommendations as this project may move forward into PD&E, and that includes trail width and separation. So with the high speeds along US 90, having as much separation between the trail and the road is important to encourage use of these facilities. We also want to make sure that there is a meandering design. This is going to help influence cyclist speed as they approach intersections or driveways along the corridor. It will also allow us to avoid some of the trees that are out there, and it really makes the ride more enjoyable when we're looking at long distance trails. We also want to address the locations of note and understanding that those are things that need to be further evaluated during the PD&E, and just addressing that that may reduce the trail going down to 8 feet in some areas, or possibly having some type of vertical barricade between the trail and the travel lane if there isn't enough right-of-way to accommodate at least 5 feet between those two facilities. The Creighton myrtles are very significant to a lot of residents and in Jefferson County as well as Leon County. So, we want to strive to make sure these trees are unaffected to the extent possible when evaluating the routes and determining the most appropriate route to move into a design that allows us to avoid these trees. We have some very preliminary renderings. These are not to exact scale by any means. These are planning level, as I like to call them, flying 20,000 feet above the road. But ideally, we want them on the back side of the Creighton myrtle because they really make trails like this more enjoyable. They are a part of the history along this corridor, and we want to make sure that those are being maintained. And just the trail amenities, as I mentioned, we heard from a lot of the public during our engagement of where are the trailheads, where is there going to be parking, and we just want to make sure that it's noted that those are included into future phases of this project, including parking, weather shelters, because it is over 20 miles in length, and we love a good thunderstorm that just pops up in the middle of the day, and we want to make sure people are able to take shelter, but make sure that the public is consultant on the location of some of these trail amenities. And last was just really to touch base a little bit more on the project development and environment study. As I mentioned, it's a process that was developed by FDOT. All Department of Transportations have something similar to comply with our National Environmental Policy Act. It's really taking a more detailed look. So instead, one example I like to give is we can determine wetland impacts through geographic information systems, just a geospatial analysis. This would actually be going out and doing wetland delineations to know exactly the amount of wetlands that would be impacted from construction of a trail. So it takes a high level and makes it more detailed for the social, economic, natural, and potential physical environmental impacts of constructing this project. So this project, as we mentioned, would be all of these routes, plus the option to use Edenfield, Miles Johnson, and Miccosukee to avoid I-10 to move into the PD&E for further evaluation. And with that, I would be more than happy to answer any questions you all may have on this project.
Thank you very much, Kate, for the comprehensive presentation, as always. And I will say, not only have you dealt with COVID and virtual meetings in your public outreach portion, but it's really good to see you here at the meeting. I know you've had to give presentations to us virtually, and it's always great to see you. So thank you for that. A lot of good work by you and your team. I'm going to give this to Commissioner Walker first, even though I know your colleague, Commissioner Barfield, is really the bike rider here, but maybe you're going to surprise us. But just wanted to toss it over to you if you have any questions or comments about the Jefferson County portion, and then I'll open it up for other questions.
It all looks good to me. I think that a lot of people's behind it in the county, and also I'm hoping it goes through.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Minor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a quick comment that, I wanted to thank Greg Slay and his involvement with hearing some citizen concerns about a family's property along US 90. And when we first looked at it, it looked like the right-of-way boundary was encroaching upon what they had perceived to be their property line far into it. And it looked a little bleak at first, but Greg kept on digging and found that there was actually a mistake in the way that the map was drawn with the right-of-way boundary. So I want to give props to our executive director of CRTPA for looking into that and really diving into that to accommodate this family and learning along the way that the right-of-way line was actually something much more amenable to what the family was hoping for anyway. So thank you, Greg, for that work. It's a good example of CRTPA addressing citizen concerns. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I would pass that praise on to Mr. Burke because he's actually the one that found it. So,
well, okay, it'd be Mr. Greg Slay in the CRTPA team. So thank you very much, Greg Burke. See you later.
I'll move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. My only comment on this, and I appreciate the fact you're not making we're not making any choices between these alternative routes here. I think it's appropriate to study all of that. We may not do that on all projects because the cost for studying all alternatives, correct? But this is a little unique, and it's in our interest to study all of these alternatives. Is that right? Okay. So you just made a comment about this was Route 3 and the diversion onto Baum Road, Jefferson Road area, that bikers may not have a problem sharing the road with vehicle traffic in that area. And it seems like there is a difference between a really low speed in the city of Monticello and sharing the road there than sharing the road with a narrow rural road where people can pick up the speed a little bit. So that's something you all are going to be looking at for safety. Is that right?
And I was going to say, we'll look at that more from understanding what off-road facilities can be accommodated within the right-of-way. The right-of-way isn't, because we found isn't exact using property appraiser data in some of this. A lot of places it is, but once we saw what we got from FDOT, we realized that there was some discrepancies. So that one would be more evaluated of what the right-of-way would be to accommodate an off-road facility.
Okay, I'm glad I asked to clarify that because off-road makes some sense, but I heard you say that there was some limitations in right-of-way or challenges, and that's what you're looking to clarify that data.
And right now, a lot of cyclists currently use that route as well as some other roads. So it is our more strong, confident cyclists that would feel comfortable on those, but we do want this to be used by people who maybe don't have that level of confidence. So yeah, absolutely.
You just went to the reason for the question, that the strong, confident cyclists who do not mind sharing the road with, I'm looking at a few of them, with traffic, they're the ones who are already using that route. So to do this trail is really to try to get it accessible to more people, different skill levels.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes,
could,
sir.
I wanted to, you touched on it to start with. I wanted to clarify a little bit since we're coming off the Thomasville Road study we did a few months ago with the feasibility study, and this one, a big difference there with the feasibility study for Thomasville Road was the fact that it was a much shorter segment. We were within existing right-of-way, and there were no significant environmental features. So that one will move straight into design. Whereas this is a 20-plus mile corridor. There are wetlands, there are farmlands. There's a lot more environmental impact on this one, and one of the precursors to the PD&E study is you cannot go into it with a predetermined route. As Kate mentioned, I'm just kind of reiterating that. This was more just looking to see at a base level, are we comfortable that we can fit this in with an existing right-of-way? But this feasibility study was a little bit different approach than the one for Thomasville Road.
There are so many different rules and associated with all of our projects. I appreciate that reminder, right? Maybe that's an understatement. So it is a good reminder because as we're asked by constituents, why one project went one direction and another one.
That's why I wanted to make those comments.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Hearing no other comments? Okay, thank you very much, you and your team, the Gregs. Thank you both. All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Any opposed? Commissioner Maddox, are you in favor?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All right. So we are moving right along, everyone. We are now on item 8, FDOT update. How are you, Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The department's got one item to update the CRTPA board on today. It's a virtual project update for a project we have upcoming in Gadsden County. This is the realignment of Dover Road at US 90. We'll be looking to realign and create a single point intersection there and upgrade that intersection to a signalized intersection, as well as make the corresponding adjustments to the turn lanes in that facility. We will be having this virtual project update on Wednesday, June 22nd. And this information will be available on our Northwest Florida Roads website. That's nwflroads.com. You can go there and sign up for the virtual meeting, or go there and sign up for the information related to the project itself. We are in design. We do have right-of-way and construction funded, so we're looking forward to this project moving forward. And with that, that concludes the department's update.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being with us always. Any comments or questions? Yes, sir, Commissioner Villalobos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am just going to extend profound appreciation and gratitude to FDOT for that project. Is very highly needed, especially since I think that's the part of the road where we have the new school. Okay, and it is a very dangerous intersection. The students and the parents coming in and out to pick up their kids. So we are appreciative and thank FDOT. Gaston County loves FDOT.
Wow. They passing out T-shirts too?
I was going to ask if they had buttons, so yeah. I think you're on the same wavelength.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
And I don't know if this is the appropriate time for this question, but I'll ask it now, and if the answer comes later. We all know that the president just signed the major infrastructure bill, 2 days ago, if it's been that long. And I heard in the report that several of the projects were already in progress. Do we have projects here in the state that are already in progress? And if not, when can we expect that funding and how will it be used?
Well, you asked in the state. I mean, do you mean in the CRTPA region?
Well, specifically for us, but are there?
Yes, sir. We have several throughout our portion, our district in Florida. The US 98 segments in Bay County, locally referred to as Back Beach Road, those are scheduled for 6-laning. Those funds did allow us to advance the right-of-way and construction for those segments. The remaining segment of Capitol Circle here in Tallahassee did really receive $7 million worth of the ARPA funds. That was really previous to the new federal bill. The increase in funds in the actual federal bill itself, those have not yet been applied to specific projects. That will what will occur as part of what Suzanne presented as your project priority list as we go through those.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for asking that question. I'm sorry, did you have something else, sir?
No,
I appreciate you asking that question because we talked about it in our briefing, and there's a lot of moving pieces here, so I'm glad you made the distinction, Brent, between the ARPA dollars and what will be coming through the new infrastructure bill. But based on what you said there at the end, to your knowledge right now, it would go into FDOT's general funding to be distributed to the districts and then to work through our regular system for allocation.
That is correct. You know, with the setup we have at Florida DOT, the majority of our capacity funds do go to the Strategic Intermodal System, or CS, so there will be that deviation between the two funding sources. But we're looking to be able to advance several corridors.
Fantastic, thank you.
And just to follow up, I'll remind you all, remember, especially when the feds do it, the bill may contain $100 million. It's a lot more than that. But Congress still has to actually appropriate that money, and sometimes they don't appropriate nearly as much as what the original bill said, so we always have to be cognizant of that.
And sometimes the governor won't accept it. So
I'm
keep that in mind
I'm
as
not
well.
going to go there.
It's true. It's factual. So let's hope all things align and it does trickle down.
Yes, ma'am.
That is true, but we're going to remain hopeful that for transportation and infrastructure dollars, that this funding will be coming down because this is not a partisan issue, to be sure. This is just something we all focus on, but it's a fair comment. Yes, ma'am. Fingers crossed.
Let me just remind you of Disney.
Yes. All right. Always goes back to Disney. Any other comments or questions? Brian? Thank you, sir, very much. All right. Moving along. Pat's not staying on here. Executive Director's Report.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Slay.
We've got a few items here. First of all, we'll be kicking off actually tomorrow the Tallahassee to Havana Trail Feasibility Study. This is one that I believe Commissioner BBC had asked about a few months ago, so we're getting that one ramped up. A project near and dear to Commissioner Richardson's part, NIMS Middle School. I had a meeting last week with Mike Lewis. The project made their package, so to speak, of projects for the new federal funding. One of the things he did mention, it might be good for us to go ahead and try to work on the design, and you actually all approved money for the design of that project last year, so we're going to circle back with him and see if we can at least get that started. He felt that would put it in a better position to go ahead and get construction dollars, because it's about I think between design and construction, it's about a $750,000, $850,000 project. So it is moving forward, just slowly, unfortunately. The other thing, actually it's included in your packet, is item 10E. Just wanted to give you a brief overview. DEP is looking to update their greenways and trails master plan maps. These are the maps that the Sun Trail Network is based on. For our area, we're recommending some changes. Right now, currently, US 90 through the City of Tallahassee is designated as a priority corridor. With the work that's being done with Blueprint on Bannerman, some of the work that we're doing on that Tallahassee to Havana connection on US 90, we're recommending that, in essence, we look at a loop around the north side of Tallahassee that would tie up to Havana, then back to Quincy. We didn't ask for action today because it's their recommendations to DEP. It still has to go through their process. So we would probably bring those back to you, I'm guessing September. I think they're scheduled to wrap it up, Jack, in November, December?
Yeah, the final approval would be in December.
Yeah, so we would bring that to you all back for formal action, like I said, more than likely September, sometime in that time frame. And Madam Chair, the only other thing is we are looking to cancel next month's meeting, so you all have an extended break in terms of your TPA anyway. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to mention to Greg, thank you for having a conversation with KCCI regarding the, what is it called, where they're coloring the.
Yeah,
I want to say enhanced crosswalks. That was, that was interesting. I explained to her, she's much better off trying that on local roads. I don't know that DOT would even remotely consider that on a state road, but I did find it funny that they got a DOT award for them down in Tampa. So, but yeah, she and I had a good conversation about those.
Thank you.
If I could follow up on that, I have had some constituents from Lafayette Park, other neighborhoods, and they suggested you all were working on this at the city. That was for Miccosukee Road, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Kate Sullivan. At Kate Sullivan.
Right. So it was, it's a county maintained, but it's a state road. And so
No, Mixuki is a county road.
it's a county road. Okay, that's what, when you said state road, that's why I wanted to make sure I had the location right, because it is, I thought it was county completely.
Right.
And I thought it was a great idea. I was glad the city was already looking at it, but I just told them if and when it needed to circle back to the county to let us know. So I'm glad you all had those meetings.
It was a good conversation, and I'm sorry, I forget the young lady's name, but she was very enthusiastic.
Bessie Couch.
Okay. She was very enthusiastic and wanted to do it everywhere, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, we need to kind of take it
Okay,
slow rolling, unfortunately.
that's when you started talking about the state
state
roads. I see, okay. That's why I had to clarify, because Miccosukee, that's in the county family. So, all right. Thank you, ma'am, for bringing that up. Any other comments or questions? You got good news, Commissioner Richardson. We all did, I should say. All of us did
Yeah.
on NIMS, but thank you for focusing on that for so long. So glad it's
Being
moving forward.
persistent.
Yes, sir. All right. And I did look at the map for the proposed recommendations for the trails. If you haven't gone to that link yet, I would just suggest you do it. It's awesome to see the number of trails that are either in place or proposed throughout our four-county region, and it's really exciting what this is going to look like. A lot of us have been hearing about it for a really long time, been working on it for a very long time, Mr. Draper, and to start making some of this progress, it's really exciting. We're probably going to see, as Kate said, a lot more visitors coming to town to access these networks. So, yeah, thank you for that. All right, so we are at, well, there's some information there, items from CRTPA members. We're moving through it, folks. And easy day for y'all. Commissioner Villa-BCA, do you have anything?
I was going to move for adjournment.
Second.
Okay, well, there you go. All right, well, I don't know if we actually needed to vote on that motion because we are done if there's no comments. So thank you all very much. Thank you to the staff, and we are adjourned.